Hey, I'm Ray Milano. Welcome back to the We Are Fredericksburg podcast studio. Today's episode is sponsored by The Workshop. Great place located off the Blue and Gray Parkway near downtown. They have a lot to offer. This table, for example, is something that they made for us. They created the live edge, finished it off. They also made our sign over here. Been through a CNC routing machine, and they took care of all the paint stuff for us. They're really awesome. There's some other furniture items they have in there. But what's really great about that facility, you can become a member and go in there whenever they're open and work on your project. So if your space in your basement or your garage is not big enough, head in there. You can use their planers, their saws, their routers. They've got lots of tools. They do classroom instruction. A lot of kids go in there. You can go in there and do some classroom, make some. They've got a lot of wood to offer, a lot of slabs. It's really a great place. You got to check them out. Workshop. Thank you so much, guys. On to today's special guest, Matthew Rose with Roses Are Red Photography. Matthew is a well-known photographer located in downtown city of Fredericksburg. Matthew, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ray. Thank you for having me. This is a great setup you have here.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're here. Matthew, you're a photographer. What'd you do before photography?
I did electric work and home improvements. Vastly different.
Were you the guy leaving all the electrical shavings on the floor?
I tried to sweep up after myself. I like a clean job site.
Yeah, that's a good electrician right there.
Yes, sir.
That and you got to have all your screws on your plates lined up vertical.
Very OCD about it.
Yeah. I think that is how you really gauge if an electrician is good or not.
That's right. Wall plates, the screws got to be perpendicular.
Right. So, Matthew, how'd you get into photography?
I actually dated a photographer years ago, and she showed me how to use her camera so that I could take some pictures of her.
Was it a big learning curve?
Very big learning curve, but I fell right into it. I was just in love with it. She's like, here's a starter camera. Take off and play with it. And so starting out, I ran around the family farm, taking pictures of animals and wildlife or just anything that was around.
What first interested you most taking photography?
I felt like it was just capturing moments, like the little things that you walk past on a daily basis and take for granted.
Did you lean towards like outdoor scenery, animals, people?
To start, other than photographing her, animals, they were always around. I was always at the family farm. Horses, cats, dogs, pigs, goats, you name it. And then as that progressed, people coming around the farm, family. My mom's dog Lily was like my main subject there for a while. And I just had a passion for that.
Right.
Next thing you know, people start reaching out. Hey, take my picture. It kind of shocked me.
So what's behind Roses Are Red, the name? How'd you come up with that?
So I was at a point in my life where I felt like I had blinders on. I was just, the day-to-day grind, get up, go to work, whether it be electrical, home improvements, and it was just like the same thing. It felt like Groundhog Day. And once I picked that camera up and started running around with it, I started like looking at the world through a child's eyes again, almost like finding beauty everywhere. And the term "take time to stop and smell the roses" kind of resonated with me, and I felt like Roses Are Red with my name was a fitting name. Take time and smell the roses, capture the beauty that's around you everywhere. Slow down, appreciate life. And my grandmother was a master gardener as well that grew beautiful roses. Roses Are Red poetry has always been a thing for me, so it just felt right.
How has things developed over time with photography for you? Because you made a transition at some point and then started doing it all the time. How has that developed?
So as I was doing the electric work, home improvements, I was still, doing photography just for fun. And people started reaching out to me, asking me to take their picture. And I didn't view it then as like, this could be something. So backing up, the girl I was dating, her and I separated. She took her camera back. But I still had that passion to capture moments. So I'm running around with my cell phone, just taking pictures of things. And it was then people are asking me to take their photo. And I was like, I don't even have a camera. And I thought it was weird. But moments like that kept happening. And I was having dinner with my daughter, and she's like, this is something you should really think about pursuing. And so from that moment, I started researching cameras and putting a lot more thought into it. And one day I woke up and decided to pull the trigger on a camera, some equipment, and I did. Not long after that, I woke up and I was like, I'm just going to make a Facebook business page today, laying in bed. And so that's what I did. And, I was still doing my full-time 9-to-5 job. It was just work all day, fit in photo shoots when I can. I'm asking people, hey, can I take your photo? Or let's do this, or let's do that, trying to build a portfolio. Let's get creative. And about a year in, the two jobs were really bumping heads. I was working all day, fitting photo shoots in the evening or on weekends, editing all through the night, not a lot of sleep. But I hadn't reached a point where I could let go of my day job. I needed that for security. And right around the time COVID hit, the owner of Heartwood Photography had messaged me about some furniture they had over there, Chris Thornton. And so I live a block from the studio, so I walked over to meet Chris at Heartwood Photography to look at this furniture. And I was like, yeah, I'll take that. I had pretty much a studio set up in my living room at home. And I thought it was a nice addition. And so as I'm getting ready to leave, he goes, I got one more thing you might be interested in. And he's like, goes like this, all of it. And I was like, wait, what?
Like,
not what I was expecting.
Like equipment, backdrops.
I thought he was talking about maybe a light fixture or some more furniture, but he meant the whole business.
Wow.
And so that kind of took me back. I thought about a studio at some point, but it just wasn't that soon in my trajectory.
Right, that's like a few levels up from where you were thinking.
Yeah, I'm about a year in with Roses Are Red. And it was doing well, but not at a point where I could do photography full time. So I had a lot of questions. COVID's just starting. That was scary. I was like, what's going on here? Why do you want to sell now? Everybody's going to be stuck in their homes for the next 6 months. But his wife in the DOD, they wanted her in Washington State. They were expecting, and they had to go. So I was like, I'll think about it, And I went around to family, friends, let people know what's going on. And I was kind of looking for someone to say, yeah, no, it's a bad idea. Don't do it.
Right.
Because it was scary. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And nobody said it's a bad idea. Don't do it. And I was a little disappointed at the time. At one point, I spoke to a friend about it. And he's like, what do you got to lose? You can declare bankruptcy and become president these days. And I was, you know what, you're right. So I messaged him and we met back at the studio, and I was, after going through some specifics,
sure,
I was like, I'll take it. I think I'll do this. And banking was appointment only. Everything was slow due to COVID. And, and I explained that to him. And he's like, but do you want it? And I was like, absolutely. He just shook my hand right there, dropped the keys, and it says, you can move in today. I'll get the check when I get it. And so with the addition of Heartwood, I decided I was going to take that leap of faith and kind of let go of my day job and put all my focus into photography. And so I moved everything, my equipment, over to there, did a little remodeling, and, I was at the point where, like, even if I have to eat ramen noodles for the next year, that's what I'm going to do. I still would dip in and do some electric jobs and things like that when times were slow. And a side effect of COVID that I didn't anticipate was professional headshots went through the roof because everybody started working from home and companies needed to see who they were working with in the online presence.
Heartwood had already done a lot of that.
Absolutely.
Like headshots
Professional
in their business
headshots,
model.
weddings. They did a lot of that. But due to COVID and the online presence that was required, the headshots really took off. And that was something I wish I could say I anticipated.
Yeah,
because I totally rolled the dice.
People were using headshots as their Zoom picture in Zoom meetings, right? Like,
that's right.
Definitely, I could see the demand go up for that.
Yeah.
So you've gotten calls, requests for work through the Heartwood, and then you've built up clientele base through Roses Are Red. People start talking. This is kind of the business where there's a lot of referrals, right?
Absolutely.
It's grown. How do you handle the demand now?
Well, I've become more efficient at that, through experience, learning how long a shoot's going to take, where I can fit this in the editing process.
Let me stop you there for a moment. I just want to make sure, because I'm under the impression editing is what takes the bulk of the time.
Oh, absolutely.
To do it, right?
Absolutely. I definitely spend more time behind the computer than I do on an actual shoot.
Right.
Culling the images, sending the client their proofs, they choose, and then I edit. And it's funny sometimes, like, oh, what you do seems so fun, and I'm like, half the time I'm in a chair in sweatpants and bedhead. It's not that glamorous all the time. But I've got Laura Long is assisting me, and she's been great at helping alleviate a lot of things so that I can focus more on the editing.
Yeah.
And
Laura is unbelievable. She's absolutely amazing.
Yes, as you know.
Yep. She is on the ball.
Great woman.
Yeah.
Really, and I started out, I was like getting really overwhelmed with work. And she kind of like bullied her way in. She said, like, yeah, you struggle to ask for help and you have control issues. You need me. After a while, I was like, you know what? You're right. Thank you for bullying your way in.
I think that's invaluable for any business owner to have somebody that can step in, tell you what you may not want to hear, say, look, Matthew, like, this isn't going to work, or you need to get back on track on this. That's hard for somebody to do when you're making all the decisions for the business, to have somebody come and challenge you. But I've had one person that was so challenging, and she was probably the most valuable person that's ever worked with me over the years. But she would straight up say, Ray, I don't think what you're doing is the best thing to do. It's hard to find somebody like that. Laura is definitely that character.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Very thankful for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Heartwood, Roses Are Red, two different brands, building clientele, shifting things around. What do you think is important about branding? And the other aspect of that is making the brand significant. Like, you've got an awesome logo, man. I mean, it's undeniably unique. Like, it's an authentic brand that you see downtown. If you're driving down the road, it's very, very unique.
As far as branding goes, it was definitely, I think I got in my head really with the challenge. I thought it was a challenge, and it really wasn't, was introducing Heartwood and Roses Are Red together, because they were two very different entities. Heartwood was professional headshots, family weddings. Roses Are Red was family portraits with boudoir. I felt like I put more focus into Roses Are Red, being that was my baby. That's
Right.
what I started. But I learned so much through Heartwood. And Chris was very helpful in the beginning, helped guiding me how Heartwood did things, which is very different than what I did. I didn't go to school for that. I just literally shot from the hip. And so he gave me a lot of strategic tips to use that Heartwood used that I brought over into Roses Are Red. And then after a while, it just meshed into one. And I really don't even think of them as two separate anymore. It's just taking pictures.
Right. Well, and you're known, Matthew Rose, Roses Are Red Photography.
Right.
That's how.
And when you go to the Heartwood website, it says part of Roses Are Red Photography. And, and I ask people how they found me, whether it be through Heartwood or Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or rosesarered.com. So there's different avenues to reach me.
Right.
Which I think is good in the branding of having that logo spread out.
Right. It's a very recognizable logo. It's awesome. I mean, you can't miss it.
Thank you.
Very, very cool. Do you think there is a more pivotal moment in your career than when you purchased Heartwood?
Yes. And I would have to say my buddy Huntley winning The Voice. Prior to that, it was when he came back from the pre-recorded parts, we started doing shoots to promote him, because it was in the voters' hands. What it did was it brought me closer to artists and creators than, say, doing a 2-year-old's birthday party, for example, or a maternity shoot.
Like more business to business.
More business to business.
Right, it's still
Absolutely.
people, but now
it's still people, exactly.
But it's more of a business to business level.
Exactly. And I found that my love for creating in general, I needed to put more into that. Watching and the artists all around me in Fredericksburg in general, it just brought me in contact to a lot more creators. So that made me want to shift directions, so to speak.
And it's not just photos of individuals. Like, you're thinking about the environment, the setting, what's in their hands, where they're looking at, like the setting
Absolutely.
that they're actually in.
Absolutely. For example, one of my favorite photo shoots ever, it was early on in Roses Are Red. Britt Page had reached out to me, and she's like, "Hey, I want to do a photo shoot." I was like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" She's like, "I'm not sure." And so I was like, "Well, give me something to work with." She's like, "I just don't know, I just want to do fun pictures." And so I'm like, "Tell me about yourself." And so she gave me some background on herself, and then she's like, "Yeah, I'm going to school for phlebotomy." And I was like, "There you go. We're going to do a vampire shoot."
Oh, Jesus.
And that was so fun. Like, we started out, there was this old barn that I knew of that my dad took me hunting at when I was growing up. And so, I went as far as there was an old tub sitting in this barn in the middle of nowhere. And I went out there and I had to truck water in for it. And come back, we got her, we rode out there, and, she wore the white flowing in the fields, and then we did the vampire bite. And then she went and changed into her vampire outfit, and it was like a transition. It was like a whole story.
Wow.
And with this tub of blood, it was just more than taking pictures. It was like just the creation of the scene.
That's
and
an
everything.
experience right there.
I loved it. It was an experience, and it was like a whole day of it, and it was exciting, and the pictures were great. And that is where I find my love for the photography shines through the most. I've never woke up a day since I started photography full time sad about going to work. No complaints. Whether it's a professional headshot or a creative shoot like that with Britt or a wedding. I look forward to all of it. But I find that the creating something is where I feel most comfortable.
And you're applying that now to working more with artists.
Absolutely. And I look forward to building on that, So what I felt is like there's just things that I've been doing that maybe I'm going to step back from. Newborns, maybe adults that take direction, have creative ideas, would be better suited for myself. And put more focus into that.
What do you think you're going to be focused on the future? The same stuff you are right now, or do you see another shift into maybe new stuff or more?
I feel like things are going to shift more towards working with other creators, artists, musicians. That's what I see in my forecast.
Now you're around a lot of videographers too.
That's true.
Is there a connection there?
Well, videography has not been something I've done. Many years past, I never hit record on my cameras. So that's something that I've recently delved into. I mean, the last few weeks, I've spent a lot of nights on YouTube, watching tutorials, reading forums, and practicing.
Is it like a different language for you?
It is a different language.
Right.
I think the first time I thought about video, it was very overwhelming. I'm like, oh, it's a whole different animal, that I didn't want to take on in the midst of being busy. But finally I was like, okay, simplify this. You're making this out too much. So whether it started with video and a cell phone gimbal and just practicing edits on an app, it's like you crawl before you walk.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I was like, I made this into a big deal, and it really wasn't. The eye's already there. It's just a new way of telling a story.
Right.
And so I'm not where I, would charge professionally for videography, but not even close. But I look forward to taking that on.
Matthew, you live and work in the city of Fredericksburg.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of a different place in Fredericksburg. It's a different kind of community. There's a whole lot of history, a lot of stories. A lot of people know each other. How is working in the community, how do you think that has had an impact on your business?
Greatly. The city of Fredericksburg is so great. There's so many. It's a quaint city. Everybody there I've come in contact to is so nice. I've lived downtown for 5 years. My business is downtown. I can walk to work in 3 minutes. And I spend a lot of time on its sidewalks, talking to people, meeting people. And it's always a good day. Never have a bad day in Fredericksburg. And there's so many business owners like yourself that get involved with the community. And I think it's great. And I remember there was one moment when they were doing the watch parties and things for Huntley. There was a moment, I remember, when Bias came to town with Huntley and sang some songs.
At Billikens.
At Billikens.
I remember that.
And, this is a contest. You know what I mean? It's like people are voting for who's going to win. And you've got our hometown guy right here. And then you've got a guy that's competing against him. And everybody was so warm to Bias. They were so welcoming. And I was like, that said a lot to me about the people in Fredericksburg. They're just very welcoming, and they offer so much to new people coming in. And it's just a good place.
I can't say enough good things about Fredericksburg.
Brian Balick, prime example.
Yeah,
he's
been here less than a year, and he's well known. I mean, he's so good at what he does.
Yes, he is.
But a lot of relationships that have formed in a very short period of time downtown it's just that kind of area. It's just that kind of community.
It is. And, and I thought about at one point years ago moving to Richmond, and I just couldn't do it. I was like, if I want big city, 45 minutes away, one way or the other. But I don't, that's not where I wanted to call home.
Right. You have traveled and done some photography out of the state. How far have you traveled to do photography? What's the furthest place you've gone?
Las Vegas, Nevada is the furthest I've traveled for photography thus far. And I hope to go further.
I imagine you will.
Yeah.
Probably here soon.
That's the plan.
So, odd question. How many photos do you think you've taken in your career?
Well, there's about 35,000, 40,000 on my hard drive right now, and that's the second hard drive I've gone through. Definitely a lot. Now, a lot of those never got edited.
Right.
But I've snapped a lot of pictures.
Are photographers hoarders when it comes to these,
I'm
these image files?
terrible hoarder. I've always, even my Google Drives, consistently, you're running low on space. I'm definitely a hoarder. I'm like, I don't want to get rid of that. I might go back to it later, and you never know.
Yeah.
So,
Matthew, you're a well-known guy. You're very likable. People talk to you. They see you on the street. They stop and talk to you, which you're happy to oblige. You're under demand. There's a lot of people that are requesting that you do work. You're doing additional stuff with Huntley.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a busy guy. What does a day in the life of Matthew Rose look like right now?
Well, I generally wake up. I go straight to my computer. I have all the office space over at the studio, but I choose to do all my editing at home, just close to the refrigerator. And so that's generally, I start my day right at the computer. I look at emails. I jump on edits. And then, my schedule's all over the place. It could be, recently, I could be out of town, or at the studio doing headshots, or family photos at Chatham. It's just, no day looks the same. I try to make time for my family. And that's another thing that I feel like I love about downtown, is when I need that social time, I could just walk out the door. There's something close to do. Whether it be a restaurant with friends, or live music at Billikens, or Castilla's somewhere around. There's always something to do relatively close to home. And it can be chaotic too. It can be chaotic.
Not a whole lot of free time in your life right now, is there?
Not really, but I'm okay with that. Because I love what I do.
Yeah.
So even what I'm doing, I do what I love. It's like I make free time. But when I'm doing my job, I'm at peace as well.
Right. Sometimes I get that question a lot. What do you do for fun? What do you do in your free time? I'm like, well, I live a life that I think is fun all the time.
Right.
I'm either running this company, I'm running that company, or I'm meeting people, or I'm looking into opportunities for the future. I just love what I do, whatever it is. Taking care of fish, or in the workshop, and building something in the barn. I'm always having fun. I guess I really just don't think of it like free time. I guess the more appropriate question would be, what are you doing when you're not doing what you normally do for business? What would you be doing if you're not editing, if you're not having a meeting with a client, if you don't have a camera in your hand? What would you be doing?
Well, fishing weather's coming up, so I'll definitely be doing some fishing. I like to try new restaurants. I like live music, with friends and family. Traveling, whether just take off in the Jeep and go for a ride, or go to the mountains. Sky's the limit.
Yeah. Matthew, who is somebody that you look up to, somebody that's inspired you?
My mother. She's a hard worker. And, she's just like a soldier. She went through cancer. She doesn't let anything beat her down. She just keeps. She's the. You see perseverance. She's there, and I feel like that's rubbed off on me a lot. She's an amazing woman. My biggest fan. There's been a lot of days where I doubted things, a lot of hard times, and she's like, she told me, she goes, "You've survived 100% of your worst days. Keep going." So I do. There's times I get frustrated with the way things are going, and that doesn't mean that I'm not thankful for them, but I get frustrated.
Right.
And she's like, "Keep pushing."
That's real important that we have somebody,
Yeah.
in our life that can show us a pathway to fight through all those hard times. 'Cause it's not easy.
It's not. It's not. And and her work ethic was amazing. She worked hard her whole life, and she continues to now.
Yeah. Matthew, how can people find you? How can they find your work? How can they find you?
I have several platforms. You can find me on rosesofredphotography.com. On Facebook, Roses of Red Photography 01. Same as Instagram, or heartwoodphotography.com as well.
Right. Are you on TikTok?
TikTok, yes. I have a TikTok. It's a lot
to manage, all these different
TikTok
platforms.
It's dusty from times. It doesn't get a lot of my attention. Probably need a social media manager.
Matthew, thank you for being here. Man, it's great to hear about behind-the-scenes stuff with you, what you got going on in life. I'm really excited about what you got planned in the future. I know things are changing with you. You're a busy man, and there's a lot more down the road. We're looking forward to keeping tabs on you. So thank you for coming in today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a great opportunity. And the fact that you got me on this side of the camera, because I generally shy away from that. I'm most comfortable behind it.
Right.
So this was a good pushing me outside of my comfort zone.
Well, that's what we need to do.
That's right.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's where all the growth happens.
That's for sure. Matthew, thank you.
Thank you for having me.